If you like the Young Turks podcast, I think you'll love a lot of the podcasts on the TYT network. Old School, it's one of my favorites, one of the favorites for a lot of the listeners. Please check that out, subscribe, share it. That makes a big difference, and give it a 5-star rating. Thank you. Drop it. Young Turks, Cenk Uygur, Epic Senior, Epic Junior, Epic Show. Okay. It is. Hold. Yeah. Let me explain why it's epic, and then I'll give people's actual names. Okay, so we're breaking a story tonight about the National Prayer Breakfast and how they are involved with the Russians. I think it's an amazing story. We're gonna do that first, and that is brought to you by TYT. All right, secondly, a lot of the Democrats in the House apparently aggrieved with Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. Now, here's a twist. I love that story. Why? I'm greatly amused by their aggrievement. And so we'll break it down for you. But the essence of the story is, I do declare that is not how things are done around here. Well, that's exactly the point, isn't it? So we'll get to that and we'll have a nuanced conversation about it. At times. Trump may be starting to backpedal. That news just broke about the national security situation. There's so much news, I cannot encapsulate it all here, but we're gonna do it right now. Michael Schur, Cenk Uygur, John Iadarola with you guys. Great to have you all. Let's do it. I haven't been on the show in a couple of days. I'm raring to go. Let's break the story.
This is my first 2019.
Oh, okay.
Maybe my 18th year, but maybe or something like that. But my first 2019. So.
Yeah.
All right.
And by the way, we are going to be closing out the first hour with an update on the Steve King story. So you weren't here to initially talk about it yesterday. His defense, his open defense of white supremacy as a concept. We've got an analysis of how the media actually covered that and didn't cover it, and it is fascinating.
Oh, I'm going to add one super last thing here. Look, obviously, if you want to hear the whole show and you can only get this part, become a member, tyt.com/join. You can get the whole show anytime you want, download or stream it. But we're also going to do a whole bunch of specials for you guys. We're planning right now for a State of the Union, and members will always get extra for all these coverages. Michael Cohen's going to testify in front of Congress. We're going to cover that specifically for the members. There's so much more we're giving you guys. And look, guys, the free trial continues. tyt.com/holiday, and you can try it for a week. And so there's some amazing events that are coming up, including Game of Thrones.
That's still going.
Yeah, it's gonna be the final season, so you don't wanna miss any of that.
Can I just say, I randomly rewatched the scene where the giant is in the tunnel and the Night's Watch has to confront the giant. I am so excited for Game of Thrones to come back after watching that.
Well, usually me, John, Ben, and Anna review those, so we will do it probably on the main channel, but also extra for the members. So everybody check that out. And tonight's post game is a special post game, again, just for the members. And I'm going to show you something hilarious. Now that's a tough thing to guarantee, but I guarantee you will LOL. You will literally laugh out loud, okay? So that's a tough guarantee, okay? So let's see what happens. tyt.com/join. All right, what's first?
Okay, this is a complex one, so hold on to your butts. We know that Maria Butina, the convicted Russian agent, is in a bad way legally because of her attempts during the last election to get involved in things by going to politicians' speeches, talking with them, taking photos with them, and also, as we know, attending the National Prayer Breakfast, as well as a number of other Russians as well, who apparently were here to attempt to get involved and change the course of either the election, US policy, things like that. Well, now TYT Investigates has turned up strong financial evidence that a Christian charity spent a significant amount of money for Russian guests, including Maria Butina, to attend that National Prayer Breakfast in at least one, although possibly multiple years. So let's talk about this process. The FBI says that Maria Butina and her handler, widely reported to be Alexander Torshin, a Russian official said to be close to President Vladimir Putin, attended the breakfast to influence US politics. Tax records reviewed by TYT represent the first indication they may have received direct financial support in their efforts.
So can I just pause there for a second, John? I want people to understand. So first of all, the FBI got Butina, and so she's got a plea deal. There's a lot of information in the plea deals and the affidavits. Torsion was her handler, and Torsion is one of the top Russian oligarchs, deeply tied to Putin and wanted for money laundering in Spain. So in fact, they got through the prayer breakfast. It appears they got Torsion a meeting with Trump. But then even the Trump White House had to cancel it because they're like, I mean, the guy is wanted for money laundering. We can't meet with a known criminal that our ally is seeking to extradite on these charges. So Torsion is based on the US government's findings and the Spanish government as well, pretty bad guy. The prayer breakfast is having him over quite frequently. Now, that's from the affidavits and the plea deals, et cetera. Now we know through TYT Investigate's story, Jonathan Larson did a wonderful job here, through the tax records, that a group associated with the fellowship, and John's gonna break that down for you in a second, is apparently paying for those Russians to come here. Why? I mean, that's a fascinating question, and how deep do those ties go? So let's now dive into that.
Exactly, and I want to explain briefly for those who might not follow what the National Prayer Breakfast is and why it's important. Because in this particular case, it's important because of the connection with Torsion and Maria Butina. But in a larger sense, going back a very long time, it has been an extremely influential event that both Democrats and Republicans attend, including presidents, that has this sort of veneer of bipartisanship and respectability and mainstreamness, but is in fact sort of a den of corruption of different forms, which we're gonna break down. The breakfast is run by the Fellowship Foundation, sometimes known internally as the Family, a secretive Christian group led by what's his first name?
Doug Coe.
Doug Coe, for decades before his death in 2017, although this organization goes back many, many decades. The annual event has become an international influence peddling bazaar where foreign dignitaries, religious leaders, diplomats, and lobbyists jockey for access to the highest reaches of American power. Because as we said, presidents go, senators go, congressmen go, influential people in business and all of that as well. And so meanwhile, around the prayer breakfast, outside of that specific event, that's just one event on the first Thursday of February, there's a week-long lobbying festival. There is oil industry hosting events, defense contractors, and all of that. So this is, by the way, coming from journalist Jeffrey Charlotte, who says, so you look at the list of foreign leaders who are coming again and again from around the world, they're there for access to American power, they're there to cut deals. He goes on to say, and he wrote a book, by the way, on this organization and the event, saying the National Prayer Breakfast is used to circumvent the State Department. They are arranging meetings with a real who's who of nasty figures, the kind of government leaders from some countries that typically you would not have formal meetings with. And so what's interesting is that this is such an important event that the people who attend will spend thousands or tens of thousands or even more dollars in attending. And so if an organization is paying to have Maria Butina and other influential Russians attend, that is significant because normally that has a significant price tag associated with it. So let's go into more of what was found. A July 2018 FBI affidavit said that an unnamed organizer of the breakfast helped Butina and Torsion get Russian guests into the breakfast. Federal tax filings show that a Seattle nonprofit called Leadership Development Seminars reported expenses connected to guests from Russia and other former Soviet bloc nations attending the breakfast from at least 2014 through 2017, the most recent year for which tax records are available. LDS, that organization we just mentioned, has strong ties to the Fellowship Foundation, including personnel, cooperation on the breakfast, and hundreds of thousands of dollars in funding. And going back quite some time, money flows both ways. And from LDS to the fellowship in several of the years that was found, the only thing they were providing money for was for that fellowship and their breakfast.
Okay, so now let me again level set here. You got the fellowship, the family, whatever you want to call it, they do the prayer breakfast, okay? Then you got these guys, the leadership development seminars, let's just shorten it as LDS.
Which is unfortunate too, because the Mormons are LDS.
That's right, but they are not Mormons.
They're not part of that.
It's just that this group is also called LDS. Now, Doug Coe used to run the fellowship until he died in 2017. The person who runs LDS is Doug Burley. Doug Burley is Doug Coe's son-in-law. And the fellowship also apparently paid for some of his housing. Now, and they give hundreds of thousands of dollars back and forth to one another. Until about 2014, it's the fellowship mainly giving to LDS. okay, to me that's a little bit more logical. They're apparently the bigger group. But then LDS turns around in 2013 and starts giving money to the fellowship. Where do they get that money? That's an interesting question that we don't have an answer for yet. They do have a public-facing website where they can collect money from sources that are not clear. So that'll be an interesting. And remember, there was a huge affidavit here where the FBI laid out the different problems with both the NRA and the fellowship and how they have Russians that have apparently, in a sense, infiltrated them. And so we might soon find out a lot more of these details. But for now, what TYT has found out is that Doug Burley's group, the LDS, in their tax records showed that they gave, for example, in 2017, $421,000, 644 on top, to work, quote, work in the former Soviet Union. We had 65 people from Russia, Ukraine, Georgia, Armenia, Kyrgyzstan, and Kazakhstan attend the National Prayer Breakfast in early February. And there's a lot of communication, and now some of it public. Doug Burley also talked to World Magazine about it, saying, and it seems to match up with the evidence in the affidavits and the plea deals, that they got 10 Russians into the National Prayer Breakfast in 2017. Then Torshin asked for a meeting with Trump. And all of these guys are looking to influence American politicians. Now look, at this point, if you say, look, I got it, the Republicans are massively compromised by the Russians in a lot of different ways. There's Dana Rohrabacher, there's obviously famously Donald Trump and all of his underlings, Manafort, et cetera, et cetera. But why are Democrats going to this?
Yeah.
And so wait, I thought it was about prayer. I didn't really think that, but that's what they claim, right? But in reality, no, this is about deal making.
Yeah, it was about prayer until Bill Clinton at the prayer breakfast in 1998. I'm guessing right after his affair with Monica Lewinsky was revealed, people started protesting, boycotting it because it was Bill Clinton. Then some people early in the first Obama one mentioned, well, he might be a Muslim, so is that really something that we need to have at the prayer breakfast? So even the religious side of it has historically been, of course, pretty conservative and pretty challenging. But yeah, this is clearly not just about prayer. I think one thing from Jonathan's reporting to add that's I think interesting too is that Torshin himself reportedly directed Butina who should be the Russians invited in the Russian delegation. So they were hand-picked Russians by Torshin that were invited by Butina.
Yeah, I think that this does not. So Burley is a longtime fan of Russia, and to be fair to him, so he speaks Russian. He's gone there. He goes about 3-4 times a year. So he's interested in this country. Some people are interested in France, and some are interested in China. So I think there's something legitimate there because it goes back a long time. On the other hand, if you're inviting Russian oligarchs to meet with top-level American officials and you're financing that, that is problematic. I mean, you take any country and put that in. What if he brought in top-level, instead of oligarchs, mullahs from Iran and said, you know what, I'm gonna circumvent the whole State Department, the whole process, and I'm gonna pay for the mullahs to come here and influence both the Republican and Democratic politicians. Everybody would go, that's totally unacceptable.
Well, and it might theoretically be one thing if it was considered to be a weird, extreme event where weird, extreme people go. But if it's considered just, normal, no, you go there. If you're the president, you go there. It's totally normal, totally cool, you should be there. Creating this obligation, whether real or imagined, that everyone needs to go. So I was reading up a little bit more on the origins of this organization. In the very beginning, it was created by a man who apparently got a vision from God that American Christianity was focused too much on this idea of poor people and doing stuff for poor people. That's a waste of time. Jesus is strong and he wants you to track down the key individuals, powerful, influential people, get them to support you, and then they will set up a system and laws that benefit Christianity and create what has been termed trickle-down Christianity or trickle-down evangelicalism. That is not a middle-of-the-road form of Christianity.
No,
that's not something that maybe some Republicans, some Democrats could get on with that. Although they have.
And it also has.
I'm going to get to the Democrats in a second.
It conveniently has the name National Prayer Breakfast, which is the softest, most benign name, and everything sneaks under that radar.
Yeah.
Although when its nickname is the family would like to meet you now. I'd be a little careful. Anyway, so but on to super important stuff. So first of all, The question is, why are Democrats going here? Okay, the Republicans might be compromised, but why are top-level Democrats going to support evangelical right-wing Christians and their agenda about trickle-down Christianity, trickle-down economics, and it said these people are clearly right-wing. I mean, we're really having a conversation about how it's bipartisan. No, it is the Democrats then helping support a right-wing frame, even if they weren't involved with the Russians. Now, it's about to get way worse in a second as well. But first, on this Burley guy and what he thinks of Jesus, okay? First, he said that back in 2017, now at this point, Donald Trump is president, remember? He's quoted by the Russian Evangelical Alliance that there will soon, in a matter of 3 months, he said, be, quote, a breakthrough between Russia and the USA that is about to occur. Now, how does he know that? What does he know that we don't know? Well, that's an important and interesting question. So now, why did I bring up Jesus? He has also said this, Burley, to give you a sense of who this guy is, the one who paid for the Russians to come here through LDS. When challenged about it in March of 2018, he said, there's big time collusion. It's the Russians and Jesus. That's the collusion. Okay, so Ted Lieu, Chris Coons, all the other Democrats that are going. In the past, Amy Klobuchar is gone, Kirsten Gillibrand, Hillary Clinton.
Al Franken went.
That's right. So are you guys going to continue to go with a guy who thinks that he's talking to Jesus and that Jesus wants him to collude with the Russians, and then he has information we don't have, and he's paying for Russians to meet with top officials? And what do you want to take part in that process? That's crazy. But wait, there's one last part, and this is earlier stories that the TYT Investigates broke. So Representative Bob Aderholt is a Republican from Alabama, and the fellowship has paid for his overseas trips. So where did he go? Well, one of the things that he did was he went to Ukraine and met with Rinat Akhmetov, okay? That is a client of former Trump campaign manager Paul Manafort. So that's Manafort's oligarch. So now the fellowship is paying for Republican congressmen to go talk to Russian oligarchs. Why? And why are Democrats participating in this? So it's TYT Investigates' job to bring you the facts, and they have. And I think this is fascinating now that we know that there's a direct financial relationship. We know one side of the relationship, which is that the LDS is paying for the Russians. Where is LDS getting their money? We don't know that yet, okay? And I'm very curious about that. So now to the Democrats, I mentioned Ted Lieu, and let's be fair, TYT Investigates went and asked Lieu about participation here, and his chief of staff, Mark Savesco, gave this quote: if this is all true, the payments are verified and this is true and factual, of course the congressman would be concerned about it, and we believe transparency is more important, as we did with the NRA, and if there's some Russian influence on the National Prayer Breakfast, we want to know about it. Well, that makes sense. We all want to know about it. And finally, I mentioned those the trips that the Republican legislators are taking on the dime of the Fellowship Foundation. One of the things they go to do is to influence other governments to pass anti-gay legislation. Wow. Why would a Democrat support that group in any way, shape, or form? When you look at other countries' laws against LGBT members and citizens in their own countries, they're as bad as ours, and some far, far worse. Yeah. So to send people through this organization to argue against the dignity and human rights and sometimes the lives of gay people across the world, and Democrats go and validate that by going to this breakfast and saying, no, it's okay, it's wonderful, and all we're doing is praying, which is total nonsense. And you could see it in the facts here. So it's our job here at the Young Turks then to analyze it. And my analysis is, no Democrat in their right mind should give any credibility to this organization. It appears to be toxic on several different fronts.
Well, and not faulting them now, but faulting them for going to the next prayer breakfast, because that was before Jonathan Larson's reporting uncovered all of this. So if you were Al Franken in 2016 and you went to the prayer breakfast because you didn't know that this was going on, I have to think that there was a lot of not knowing that this was going on, which is why this story is so interesting as well.
Maybe. It seems suspicious from the beginning.
The Butina and torsion thing. I mean, listen.
I'm saying
that's definitely
new. I'm saying even if you don't know about that, even if you don't care about that, even if you don't care about anything having to do with any Russian that's ever lived in the world, it seems weird. I think.
Well, so look, let me be in the middle here, which makes sense. So John is right. I never would have gone to the breakfast in the first place because I know that they're right wingers. Who are we kidding, right? And who are the Democrats kidding? They're not nonpartisan. They're not left wingers, and I wouldn't want to go and aid and abet their policy against the LGBT community, et cetera, right? Like Hillary Clinton has this flowery quote about Doug Coe and how wonderful he is to her. I'm sure he was. Okay, but that doesn't help fix any of the other things. But to Michael's point, here now what do we know? Well, from earlier TYT investigate stories, we now know that they're paying for Republican congressmen to go to other countries and actively lobby against LGBT rights and their lives in a lot of cases. And now we know through the FBI and the special counsel that they were infiltrated by Maria Butina. That's a fact. And her handler is one of the top Russian oligarchs, torsion, that's a fact. Well, that's new. And now through TYT investigates, we know another layer to it, which is that it turns out they were actually paying for the Russians to attend. So now that greatly enmeshes the National Prayer Breakfast with Russian oligarchs that clearly had an agenda. Again, best case scenario is they were useful idiots and the Russians thought, they're paying for us to come get all this influence and power with both Republicans and Democrats. How do we get this lucky? There are other worst case scenarios, but we'll see how that develops.
And something called the National Prayer Breakfast shouldn't be backed by a group like this. And if it is, then people should not go to the National Prayer, because it's not that. I mean, that's what I think the name is really deceptive, not just because it's a soft name, but because it leads people to think that this is somehow the president always goes, it's an official government function when it is clearly anything but that.
Yeah, and the president normally does go.
Yeah.
And so, I agree with Michael again, let's give these folks a chance. I mean, I'd be really surprised if Ted Lieu and Kirsten Gillibrand continue to go to a breakfast. So let them absorb the report. Let's ask them about it, and then let them verify. Let them go through that whole process, and then we'll ask. And if they say no, you know what, fighting against LGBT rights across the world and paying for the Russians to come influence us, we think that's wonderful ideas. We really like it, and we'd like to stay. Okay, well then that's a different question.
And now we should ask them about it. I mean, now we should take this to them and go to the offices of these Democratic members of Congress and say, hey, now that this report exists, are you going to go to the next prayer breakfast, which I presume is next month? It's usually in February or March.
It is. Right? It's in early February. And Michael, you read our mind. And Emma Vigeland now is going to follow up and reach out to all those offices and ask them. And so we'll find out what their answer is. But it appears that this group is unconscionable from a progressive perspective, let alone the legal issues they have now that is going to also probably get revealed in the next month or two. We already know parts of it, as we just explained, and it could be even worse from the blacked out parts of the plea deals that are not yet public.
Yeah. First break?
Yeah, now when we come back, oh boy, the establishment Democrats are on the warpath against Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. How's that going to turn out? I have a pretty good clue. We'll tell you the details, we'll tell you where it's going, and we might have a lively discussion about it, so we'll be right back.
We need to talk about a relatively new show called the Republic, or UNFTR. As a Young Turks fan, you already know that the government, the media, and corporations are constantly peddling lies that serve the interests of the rich and powerful. But now there's a podcast dedicated to unraveling those lies, debunking the conventional wisdom. In each episode of the Republic, or UNFTR, the host delves into a different historical episode or topic that's generally misunderstood or purposely obfuscated by the so-called powers that be, featuring in-depth research, razor-sharp commentary, and just the right amount of vulgarity. The UNFTR podcast takes a sledgehammer to what you thought you knew about some of the nation's most sacred historical cows. But don't just take my word for it. The New York Times described UNFTR as consistently compelling and educational, aiming to challenge conventional wisdom and upend the historical narratives that were taught in school. For as the great philosopher Yoda once put it, you must unlearn what you have learned. And that's true whether you're in Jedi training or you're uprooting and exposing all the propaganda and disinformation you've been fed over the course of your lifetime. So search for UNFDR in your podcast app today and get ready to get informed, angered, and entertained all at the same time.
Will.
All right, back on the Young Turks, some comments from you guys. First, the member section. Eclectic Miscellanea says, religion and Russians, two things that should not be influencing American politics. Agreed?
Also money.
Right, and two things that are.
That's right, unfortunately. Demstar asks, other countries try to influence our elections. Why is all the focus just on Russia? Israel has a powerful lobbying firm in America, for Christ's sake. Probably not for Christ's sake, but yes. Russia doesn't have an AIPAC equivalent. Well, then you could say that Israel is more sophisticated. And so do I like Israel or any other country influencing our politics? I mean, Jesus, Turkey asked Michael Flynn to kidnap someone. He was going to be our national security. He was our national security advisor, right? So no, I do not like that. But there are legal and illegal ways to influence us, and that is a very important distinction.
And I would argue
AIPAC
we
calls
talk about the
itself
legal ways a lot.
the AIPAC convention, where they invite people to the AIPAC convention. There's just something about the National Prayer Breakfast which doesn't sit well with me.
Yeah, and so look, we want to get all the influence of money out of politics, so that would apply to AIPAC and everyone else, and we look forward to that day. And meanwhile, let's enforce the laws that we have, so we can do both. Xavier O says, it's stories like this that makes me wonder if Mueller's slow game is to catch a bigger fish than the president. Well, okay. I don't think that he has a particular game. I think he's just going where the facts lead him. And my guess is he was probably pretty surprised to find out that it led him to the NRA and the National Prayer Breakfast. So.
Also, in fairness, what bigger fish is there than the President of the United States? Not just this one.
I assume Xavier means the groups.
All the groups, yeah. Okay, that makes sense.
Cabbage on Twitter writes, prayer breakfast with all you can eat corruption. Good deal. And Joe Oliver 44 tweets in, people using Jesus to make money. He'd love that. Mm-hmm.
He must, because so many people do.
That's right. Like rolling around in his grave. Anyway,
you want to hear some breaking news?
We do.
Okay, let's talk about it. I'm really. This was just handed to me. I haven't really vetted it yet. I hope it's true.
You know what?
No.
Why don't we let Anna do it?
There's specifics.
Because there's specific. Oh, you got it?
Yeah.
All right, then go ahead. Go for it.
Okay. Sorry, Anna. No. Breaking news. Tulsi Gabbard announces that she will be running for president in 2020. She apparently did this during an interview with CNN's Van Jones that is going to air tomorrow on the Van Jones show. And to Van Jones, she said, I've decided to run and will be making a formal announcement within the next week. They apparently talked about some of the issues that were driving her to want to pursue the presidency. And she said, there are a lot of reasons for me to make this decision. There are a lot of challenges that are facing the American people that I'm concerned about and that I want to help solve. She then listed healthcare access, criminal justice reform, and climate change as key platform issues. And she also said, there's one main issue that is central to the rest, and that is the issue of war and peace. I look forward to being able to get into this and to talk about it in depth when we make our announcement.
Okay. So I know what a lot of people will think. They'll think, why are so many progressives running? They're going to split the vote. And my answer to that usually is, we should be so lucky. Mm-hmm. And what I mean by that is, about 30 people are going to run. If it turns out there's 4 progressives and 26 establishment candidates, trust me, they're going to split the vote more. Mm-hmm. And what I mean by we should be so lucky is, somehow, miraculously, all of them have been defeated, and Bernie Sanders, Elizabeth Warren, and Tulsi Gabbard remain. We should be so lucky, right? And then, hey, you like Tulsi a little bit better, you like Bernie better, you like Warren better, great. Now, if it turns out that 3 of them are in and 6, I mean, we want to get into those calculations a year from now as we're heading into Iowa and New Hampshire. Have at it, Hoss. For now, what you have is more strong progressive voices that are in the mix and that are going to make the progressive case instead of the establishment case. Mm-hmm. I think that's wonderful for the country.
Yeah, and I think, there could be cases eventually once it gets weeded down where there's a lot of splitting. But I think initially, we're going to have, we're already in the primary. We're going to have month after month after month of talking and polls and news coverage and debates before there's even one vote. let's have as many strong progressives of different shades out there driving the conversation, because while they might agree largely on policy, they don't necessarily agree on priorities. And so some of them will talk more about one issue, some more about another. So maybe Tulsi Gabbard is talking constantly about American foreign interventions or something like that. And Elizabeth Warren is talking about reforming Wall Street, and Bernie Sanders is talking about prescription drug prices or whatever. Let's have all of them out there doing that. We can eventually figure it out once the voting starts, who supports who, and it would be great. Like, I've never really been involved in an election where I was really hard pressed to figure out who I wanted to vote for.
I know, wouldn't that be
I want
great?
that struggle.
Yeah, we have multiple progressives from which to choose from, said for the first time ever in American politics, at least in my lifetime that I've been tracking it. And I know people have different definitions of progressive, but my definition. So I have 3 people that fit the bill. I totally agree with John that they have different strengths, and then those will be different voices that and different issues that'll be highlighted because of their presence. And look, we are principled. We believe in primaries, not just when it's convenient, but all the time. We believe in it as a form of democracy. So let them battle through ideas, and not necessarily even battle, just make their case. And then we'll find out who has the most compelling narrative.
Yeah.
Bobby Kennedy and Gene McCarthy could be argued.
No, that's definitely true, but I wasn't around.
I know you weren't around there. And there have been, well, we won't get into that. Yeah, I mean, listen, there are often people of the same ilk that are running all the time. Why not progressives who are also running, a number of them running? I think because the progressive movement typically puts all their eggs in the Bernie basket, as they've done it in the past 2 years, and that's going to take some getting used to. And people who liked other people for liking Bernie are going to have to figure out whether that's enough and look at their records.
Well, actually,
that's important. Then also, the first thing I think of is, now will Mufi Hanneman finally win the 2nd district seat in Hawaii? Will she run for Congress?
I was wondering about that as well.
Former mayor of Honolulu.
So we transition to that topic now. No, I'm kidding. So one thing I am worried about is, because in your lifetime, in my lifetime too, we haven't really had this sort of thing going. It is going to be interesting to see, once we really get into it, how things play out, because we've been through a few elections, at least online and in the news and all that. You set people on fire. That's what you do. If you disagree with people, you want to destroy them. And we get so passionate that we see anyone who differs from us as the devil. So when you have 4 people who largely might vote the same way you would, were you in office. So let's say you really love Bernie Sanders, or you really love Elizabeth Warren, or you really love Tulsi Gabbard, or Ojeda, or whoever. It's going to be interesting to see how those people speak about other progressives in the race.
And also having to differentiate themselves from each other, and not just from the others, because that happens by default, and it's going to be much more of a challenge for Elizabeth Warren to now differentiate herself from Tulsi Gabbard and Bernie Sanders. It'll be easy enough for her to do against Cory Booker and Amy Klobuchar, should she do that, and should they run. But so it'll set up an interesting debate dynamic.
And look,
which I want to see.
Lastly on this, and I'm curious about it too. I actually think progressives are really smart. And that the reason why they vociferously lash out sometimes at the establishment is because of great frustration, because they have not had a lot of choices, and most of the Democratic figures do not actively fight for the bigger progressive priorities, Medicare for all. I mean, God, we had to fight so hard for most of people to accept $15 minimum wage, which is a really low bar, and it took us year after year after year, and we're still not there, right? So I think that there's a real reason why people are against establishment candidates, and sometimes passionately so. But maybe I'm wrong, and maybe we'll find out people go into camps for Gabbard and Sanders and Warren and rip each other to shreds based on nothing or based on small differences. And maybe I'm wrong, but I'm hopeful that that is not the case.
I 100% agree.
Yeah, I think that you look on candidates and circling them. For example, I guess let me put it this way. For me, I don't care about the candidate. I care about the ideas, okay, and the policies. So I want to win on policies. And so if they got great policies, hear them out. And by the way, hear out everyone. And so at the same time, look at their track record. So I want to hear out Cory Booker, but I'm also cognizant of his track record. So you can do both things at the same time.
Yeah.
It's a little bit of a lie. You wanted a wall. You just didn't like Trump.
Well, look, some of their track record is clear. Right. Let's just keep it real, okay? But it's not like Corey. Right. No, let's talk and let's see what happens.
Right. Yeah. Okay, why don't we transition to something I think you might enjoy. Today, Politico posted an article that describes how, in their terms, exasperated Democrats have become, some of those in the leadership in the House, and are deploying a strategy of sticks and carrots to try to rein in new Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. There are some great quotes from this, so let's get started. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez is already making enemies in the House Democratic caucus, and some of its members are mounting an operation to bring the anti-establishment Democratic Socialist with 2.2 million Twitter followers into the fold. Just to update that, it's now 2.3 million. I just wanted to be clear about that. I know they posted it this morning, so they can't update it constantly, but it's 2.3 million. Some lawmakers with ties to Ocasio-Cortez are hoping to coax her into using her star power to unite Democrats and turn her fire on Republicans. Others simultaneously warn Ocasio-Cortez is destined for a lonely, ineffectual career in Congress if she continues to treat her own party as the enemy. One example of that last bit is Representative Emanuel Cleaver, who says, "I'm sure Ms. Cortez means well, but there's almost an outstanding rule. Don't attack your own people. We just don't need sniping in our Democratic caucus." And I think that's a great point. I think the best way to deliver that lesson is in an article that is attacking a member of your caucus.
I think that Representative Cleaver might have missed that irony.
He was at the prayer breakfast.
Which he has gone to. First of all, I love the destined for a lonely, ineffectual career in Congress. Meanwhile, they're like, we're so scared of her. She has 2.2 million Twitter followers, now 2.3. Okay, and she's too powerful and she's getting too much attention. What happened to lonely, ineffectual career in Congress? I got news for you. Here's what Politico isn't doing. Writing about lonely, ineffectual careers. Okay, that is not what's happening. So they're obviously concerned. But to me, the most important crux of this article, and in this case, it isn't about Politico, and Politico gave good context too here, where they said, look, the Freedom Caucus for the right wing, they don't win any popularity contests, but they have pushed the Republican Party to the right and hence have been effective. So that is good, important context that Politico is giving. My issue is with the House Democrats that are trying to say, hey, do
you want to know why they're mad?
I'm pretty sure I know why.
Okay, well, I might shock you. So apparently some that they talked to were angry that she tried to challenge the new rules that they were gonna set up, which we encouraged people to vote against. But also incumbent Democrats are most annoyed by Ocasio-Cortez's threat to back primary opponents against members of their ranks she deems too moderate. My point is, I can see how she would be a little bit biased on the power of primaries since she is now a representative because she got in through a primary.
Well, so that goes to another core. So first core is Emanuel Cleaver and several other Congress people reported in this article say, hey, listen, I know you're a rookie here, okay, but we're all Democrats, so we don't attack each other. We attack the Republicans, they're the other side. My first question is, do you? Okay, the Democrats don't often effectively fight back against Republicans, that's part of the problem. Secondly, but do you agree? That's the much bigger problem. And the reality is you don't agree. You say, why are you fighting me when we agree? But wait, are you ready for the Green New Deal? Are you gonna vote yes? No, most of you are not going to vote yes. Are you gonna vote for Medicare for all? Well, a lot of you are gonna vote no, so you don't agree. Are you gonna vote for abolishing ICE? Okay, look, I don't know how I would vote on that, but there's real substantive disagreements there. On the House rules that they're criticizing, I can't believe she went and publicized that she was gonna vote no on the rules. That's because she doesn't agree with you. It's called a democracy. And guess what? You say, oh, well, we're all on the same team. Are we? Because those House rules, the one that she objected to and Ro Khanna and Tulsi Gabbard objected to, said, hey, we gotta do pay-go, which means we got to raise taxes on people if you want to pay for Medicare for all, et cetera, which is going to make it much more politically difficult. So that's not a mistake. They know that. Nancy Pelosi, Democratic leadership, and everyone but 3 Democratic congresspeople all voted yes on a rule that progressives honestly hate. I'm not just saying that. You go read anywhere online. You read the comments under our videos on Twitter. I can't find a progressive in favor of that rule, except for the overwhelming majority of the Democratic caucus. We don't agree. So don't pretend you're on our side when you just voted against us. So that context is massively important. And then secondly, on the issue of the primaries, how hypocritical would it be for Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez to defeat a Democratic incumbent in a primary, then turn around and go, I do declare I'm now in a club, so we shall not have any more primaries, and I shall support all incumbents who are wonderful Democrats, and even though we don't agree and we just voted in a way that we don't agree, I will now bow my head and say they are always right. Well, that would be preposterous, and that's what they're asking her to do.
Yeah.
Different take?
I mean, no, slightly. I blame Politico more than I blame the Democrats here.
Oh, that's interesting.
If you walk all around Congress, I was there last week, and I spoke to, there are 435 members. I mean it, I probably spoke to 150 of them, asking them questions about what was going on, how they were feeling. Democrats elated, Republicans realistic. And whenever I asked about Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, I said, what was it like with Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez in the caucus? Every single one of them that I spoke to said, it's amazing, it's so exciting, it's so thrilling, there's this vibrancy, there's this vitality. If I were to have asked any of them off the record, does her being there do this, they're going to answer. So if you go in writing an article like this, exasperated Democrats, I could write it tomorrow. I could go to Congress and find that. I could also go to Congress. And so and I don't mean this as any disrespect to Emmanuel Cleaver, but he's easy. If by the time you've gotten to Emmanuel Cleaver, there are a lot of Congress people that have not got on the record with you if you're writing a story like this. So I don't disagree that this is a ridiculous article and it's a ridiculous thing to say, but I felt nothing palpable like that. Though I know that if I had gone out looking for this article among 435 people, you're going to find a handful that would say whatever you want them to say.
Yeah. Well, that's super interesting, Michael, and I like slight role reversal here, where I'm defending Politico, but I have a sense that some of these Democrats went to Politico.
Maybe you're right.
We don't know.
I would have to
be fair,
I don't know.
I lean towards them looking for the story, I think.
Yeah, but they found it, and so and I love the context that Michael is giving. But so let's just keep going on the quotes, because I think the quotes are telling. So John,
I got a few teed up. So the first is, you mentioned there's a lot that haven't gone on the record. Politico apparently understands why they didn't go on the record, at least some. So far, most of them have kept their criticism of Ocasio-Cortez private, fearful she'll sick her massive following on them by firing off a tweet.
I thought she was destined for a lonely, ineffectual career in Congress.
Yeah, that is interesting.
That's weird.
And one anonymous House Democrat said she needs to decide, does she want to be an effective legislator or just continue being a Twitter star? There's a difference between being an activist and a lawmaker in Congress. There's one more quote I want to read. That is the response from Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez to this story. She says, to quote Alan Moore, none of you understand. I'm not locked up in here with you. You're locked up in here with me.
I hadn't seen that. Oh God, I love that. Oh, she's so good. Okay, and I believe that perhaps they do understand that, because another senior Democratic aide said, quote, people are afraid of her. Yes!
Well, and I want to say something about that, because in the beginning, it's not a direct quote from a Democrat, but what Politico, apparently what they got from these conversations is they wish that she would turn from, and they want her to unite Democrats and to turn her fire on Republicans, implying that she's not doing those things. That is false. She is more effectively making the case against Republicans than literally any other politician in the country right now. That was on stark display in response to Donald Trump's comments a couple of days ago. We saw other responses. We saw Chuck Schumer, Nancy Pelosi, and Bernie Sanders. I liked Bernie Sanders' comments. I would say that informally, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez on Rachel Maddow immediately after his speech was even more effective and off the cuff. And I think that on many of these issues, she does a protest about the Green New Deal, changes the national conversation about it. She brings up raising the marginal tax rate, and suddenly everyone is talking about whether that's a good idea. She is at the same time attacking the Republicans better than you are, uniting Democrats about bold ideas better than you are. I mean, you can't say she's not uniting Democrats, and at the same time, she's gotten 2.3 million followers on Twitter in 1 year. There's a reason for that. She is uniting Democrats. We call them progressives. And I would assume her influence extends beyond even that, because she makes the case for the policies. She represents the values better than anyone else I know of in politics.
Oh, she's been a congresswoman for a week. I mean, that's the other thing. There hasn't really been anything to do. So this is it's too early to write this article if you're going to write this article. I mean, nothing has happened. They've gone in, they've had shutdown votes for a week, and that's it. And so that's another problem I have with Politico.
Yeah, I hear you, but look, people are being sent to talk about her. Joe Lieberman is out today, and he said that she's too left.
Oh, Joe Lieberman.
Okay, and
that was
so,
my response.
And then he said, with all respect, I certainly hope she's not the future, and I don't believe she is. Well, I have a pretty good case to make that the person who is not the future is Joe Lieberman. Okay,
It's the pasture.
Just really, I am not one of those people who thinks that social media is everything and the internet is everything. Twitter is wildly unrepresentative of the real world, that's true, but it is something. And I think that if he is going to come out with all of his baggage, policy-wise and politically-wise, I mean, I'm from Connecticut. I know who Joe Lieberman is, okay? I know what he does in his interactions with progressives. If he's gonna say she's not the future, I know what the Democrats need to do because he gave advice for how they should run in 2020. She gained more than 3 times the Twitter followers today that he has. So that might mean something about how well we're communicating our values and our policies.
And that was not the worst thing that happened to him today either, because today, on the day that he's giving this unsolicited garbage, Ned Lamont, who beat him in a primary, was inaugurated as governor of Connecticut. So there's
which is justice.
More justice.
And let's just note, I mean, Joe Lieberman is taken seriously as a Democrat when he is not a Democrat.
Nope.
So now people say that about Bernie Sanders, but Bernie Sanders has always caucused with Democrats and is to the left of Democrats. Whereas Joe Lieberman ran against a Democrat in his last Senate campaign. So he lost the Democratic primary, did not accept the results of the Democratic voters, and said, to hell with the Democratic Party, I'm gonna run as an independent, and then won that race. Okay, and look, I don't have a problem with that. I believe in primaries, I believe in general elections, I believe in democracy. But don't come here telling me how good a Democrat you are. And then he came in and endorsed John McCain against Barack Obama in 2008.
I don't think he's taken seriously as a Democrat. First of all, I don't think he's taken seriously, except by a very sort of middle of the road McCainite Republicans, and that's it. So I don't think he's taken seriously as a Democrat. I think he threw all that away with the McCain endorsement.
So last things here, a couple of last quotes because I just can't love them enough. Kurt Schrader, Democrat of Oregon, said she's new here, feeling her way around. She doesn't understand how the place works yet. And I thought, exactly. Thank God for that. Okay.
Yeah, I would argue the people there never understood how it should work.
Yeah, I mean, you guys understood it and did what? You understood it and did what? I don't know what you did. So I don't want to get into a whole thing of like, no, you don't understand how hard it was to pass Romney Care when we had overwhelming majorities. Okay, so I don't want her to learn the old ways. None of us want her to learn the old ways where you just sit on your ass and basically do nothing and certainly don't fight for progressive priorities. And finally, Nydia Velázquez from Democrat of New York, she says she's reaching out to Ocasio-Cortez. They've talked, let's assume good intent here. But I don't agree with her philosophy. She says there shouldn't be a litmus test in every district. Nobody's saying there is, except for don't take corporate PAC money, because that means, are you honest or not? Okay, in our opinion, she says she should think twice about Ocasio-Cortez in the future before backing primaries against her colleagues. But she just won a primary, so that makes no sense. By the way, Velázquez also won a primary against a Democrat. But it's convenient that once they get in, they're like, whoa, no more primaries, because I already got my power. Where's that bridge? We got to burn it down right away. I already crossed it. So now Ocasio-Cortez is not doing that, and it's driving them crazy. And here's a direct quote from Velázquez. Washington is a political animal where a lot of the work that you want to accomplish depends on relationships within the Democratic caucus. In other words, be a team player, play ball here. And the honeymoon between the voters that you represent and yourself could be a short one. People want to see results. First of all, what results have you guys brought? Second of all, she is fighting for results. You can't tell her, shut up and be quiet, you're a freshman congresswoman, and at the same time say, where's your results? Where's your results? She just got a select committee on Green New Deal. When did you do that? No, okay. I mean, I can't remember a freshman congressman of either party, congressperson of either party coming in and getting a select committee because she requested it, ever. So already she has results. And what you guys are afraid of, and you're partly saying in this article is, my God, she might actually get us to do progressive priorities. To which all of us say, exactly. So if you don't like it, that's a sad day for you, but this is your new reality.
We got to take a break, but one more story probably after that.
We'll be right back.
At TYT, we frequently talk about all the ways that big tech companies are taking control of our online lives, constantly monitoring us and storing and selling our data. But that doesn't mean we have to let them. It's possible to stay anonymous online and hide your data from the prying eyes of big tech. And one of the best ways is with ExpressVPN. ExpressVPN hides your IP address, making your activity more difficult to trace and sell to advertisers. ExpressVPN also encrypts 100% of your network data to protect you from eavesdroppers and cyber criminals. And it's also easy to install. A single mouse click protects all your devices. But listen, guys, this is important. ExpressVPN is rated #1 by CNET and Wired magazine. So take back control of your life online and secure your data with a top VPN solution available, ExpressVPN. And if you go to expressvpn.com/TYT, you can get 3 extra months for free with this exclusive link just for TYT fans. That's expressvpn.com/TYT. Check it out today.
We hope you're enjoying this free clip from the Young Turks. If you want to get the whole show and more exclusive content while supporting independent media, become a member at tyt.com/join today. In the meantime, enjoy this free segment. All right, back on the Young Turks YouTube super chat. Lars Nielsen, the conservative, says, conservative media here in Scandinavia says that AOC, Warren, and Sanders are too extreme for American politics. If it wasn't for TYT Secular talking on the Majority Report, I would have believed them. So that's really interesting, and thank you for saying that, and it makes us feel good that we're at least making a difference.
That's awesome. That's great. I mean, that's like, that means there's an effect.
And Rose Star Runners on Twitter says, do not bend AOC. We love what you're doing. You have the people over the party, and that's fantastic. And then I want to, Del, I just want to disagree with you just for a second, or tell you to calm down for a second. He's in the member section. If the DNC tries to block Bernie from the primaries, he needs to run as an independent, and I think we need to look starting a separate progressive party. Whoa, nobody's blocking anybody from the primaries. Okay, so just hold on a second, bring it down. If Bernie wants to run, he'll be in the primary. And I think if I was drafting, I'd draft him #1. Was most likely to win. So just give it a chance.
Well, and on that, we don't know too much about how it's going to go, but it definitely looks better than the last time around. They're going to have 1 million debates starting very early historically. Yeah, in June, and there's going to be more than a dozen debates. And I don't know the specifics, we do need to look into that, but supposedly the thing that's gonna determine if you get on that stage, since 75 people are gonna run, is going to be small dollar donations.
Oh.
So check the details on that to make sure how they do that math, but that is good.
If they stick with that, that'll be fantastic. So bye-bye establishment. I don't know if any of you are going to make the debates.
Well, I don't know what the threshold will be, but we'll see. I think it's mainly intended for people who have 0.5% support amongst the public.
Okay, I mean, it's going to be great to see Beto against 3 progressives. Okay, all right, because Beto will make it. He'll make it on small dollar donations for sure.
Yes.
Less is hard. All right, what's next?
Maybe by the skin of his teeth, which you can see live stream on Instagram.
No, and
I just thought that was funny. That's not a thing about Beto.
No. I love that he's doing that. I think that's great.
Yeah, it's fine. I'm worried.
No, I mean, I agree. It's just stupid that people are talking about it. I don't mean this.
It's just if he did the teeth thing, I don't know what Ted Cruz is going to live stream. I'm really worried.
Don't, Ted.
I'm really worried.
Okay.
Oh.
Okay,
let's talk about something important. The Justice Democrats have apparently identified their first primary target in the 2020 election. They're working to recruit a challenger to Representative Henry Cuellar, a 7-term congressman from a strongly Democratic district who's one of a few anti-abortion rights voices in the party's House conference. It's launching a primary Cuellar fund to encourage any potential candidate that there will be resources if he or she jumps into the race. That was from a write-up by Dave Weigel at the Washington Post. Now it's interesting.
Smart target.
It is actually. So that district, Trump got 38.5% of the votes, so it's a strong blue district. There's a lot of things about him that are pretty interesting, which we'll get to. But what's interesting is that he had previously said of primary challenges. So this is not in response to this Justice Democrat thing, but he said, they came after me twice and I beat them. LBJ used to say, what's the difference between a cannibal and a liberal Democrat? Cannibals don't eat their own. That's sort of clever, I guess.
No, it isn't. It's the opposite of clever because it makes no sense. Cannibals are famous for eating their own.
No, I think he's saying that they eat outside of their tribe.
Okay,
that's the idea.
Yeah. All right. You know who's a cannibal by that definition? Henry Cuellar. because now he says, primaries, what are you guys doing? Oh, this is outrageous, you guys are like cannibals. You wanna guess how Henry Cuellar got into Congress?
Lottery.
Good guess, but no. Turns out it was primarying another Democrat.
That can't be.
But that was a liberal Democrat, so apparently that's okay. So he did a primary challenge to oust a liberal colleague in 2004 to win his seat in the first place. Now, what is left unsaid in the Washington Post is, as soon as he used that bridge, he's like, how do we set it on fire? So no one else ever comes across, because hey, I beat a Democrat to get here, so, but screw the rest of them.
Yeah.
So no, Henry, that's not gonna work.
And so we should probably talk about why.
Yes.
I mean, so there's a lot. I mean, I was going through a list of the things that he's voted on historically. He voted yes on constitutionally defining marriage as one man, one woman. His record overall in the LGBT community is very questionable. He voted yes on making the Patriot Act permanent. The Justice Democrats tweeted some of the issues. Actually, if we could bring that up, you'll see a list of a few of the reasons they're targeting him, including voting with Trump 69% of the time.
Bye, Felicia.
An A rating from the NRA, voting to penalize sanctuary cities, fundraising for the GOP, which that is interesting.
Now look, right now there's an article in Politico talking about how, hey, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez button better not help any primaries against incumbents, because it would help the other side. What do you mean? Henry Cuellar literally helped the other side. He fundraised for Representative John Carter from Texas, who's a Republican, and he was in a really close race with a Democrat who could have won. And Cuellar said, no, I'm gonna crush the Democrats, I'm gonna help the Republicans. So wait, who's on the Democratic side? Who's on the Republican side?
Yeah.
No, we got no interest in Henry Cuellar. If you're telling me that as soon as you win a primary like Ocasio-Cortez did, or by the way, Ayanna Pressley did, that you're supposed to burn the bridge after you like Cuellar did, and say, oh, no, Cuellar, you vote with Trump 7 out of 10 times. Oh, I love you, oh, you're on my team now. Oh, you're gonna vote against all progressive interests? Against members of the LGBT community, you're gonna vote against us on all these different issues, but oh my God, we're on the same team. No, we are not on the same team. So he votes with Trump 69% of the time. That is not my team. So I don't, Ocasio-Cortez can speak for herself, and all the Just Democrats who won previously can speak for themselves. I'm telling you that I love what the Just Democrats are doing, and they should primary the hell out of these guys, and this is just the beginning. Wait till they get a load of the iceberg. Their heads are exploding now. Cuellar is the appetizer, and it was nice knowing you, Henry. And so look, maybe we're wrong, and maybe we're too, sure of ourselves, but we've done this before, and that's why they're in a little bit of a panic. And by the way, one of the things we're gonna do is raise money. Now I say we in this context because I'm not with Just Democrats anymore, but I support them 100%, and I'm one of the co-founders. So why do we have the Justice Democrats? I went around and asked everybody, all the different groups, are you gonna primary Democrats? And the answer was generally, not really, no. The best groups were like, sometimes on rare occasions. All the rest of the groups were like, no way, oh my God, that would upset people inside Washington. Yeah, that's the point. Because we don't like the direction of the Democratic Party. It's a corporate party, it's an establishment party. We don't agree. And in a democracy, when you don't agree, how do you settle it? You settle it civilly in a wonderful way called an election. In this case, a primary election, one that Henry Cuellar loved in the past when he used it to his advantage. So, justicedemocrats.com/Cuellar Fund. And we will have the link down below if you're watching this later on YouTube or Facebook. Now, you raise a lot of money through that, or Just Democrats raises a lot of money through you guys to do that. You know what it's gonna do? It's gonna send a message. That's a message that progressives will love, the establishment will hate, and the battle is joined. Okay, so if we raise, I don't know what the number is, 100,000, a million, whatever it is, right? And remember how much Susan Collins flipped out when they raised money to fund her opponent when she voted for Brett Kavanaugh?
She didn't even have an opponent.
Yeah, to find an opponent,
right.
basically.
And in this case, by the way,
thing.
Justice Democrats will do the same thing that they did last time around. Go to justdemocrats.com overall, nominate people. 12,000 people were nominated last time, and we got amazing candidates like Ocasio-Cortez. So this time around, nominate more people. They'll take nominations in this particular case as well. They'll find the best candidate. And then if you guys raise a lot of money, yeah, they'll be like, oh my God, I can't believe it. They just raised from real people and not big business. That's not fair. Susan Collins called it corruption when real people give money.
She did. They get exasperated.
Okay.
Yeah, and by the way, you might want to donate because he is certainly going to have money for this battle. He's actually the top Democratic recipient in Congress of oil and gas campaign contributions over the 2015 to 2016 campaign cycle, receiving $165,000. Now, of course, he is in Texas, which makes it a little bit easier, but that is a lot of money. And I just want to jump out in front of, like, when this story comes out, then probably tomorrow on Politico, there's gonna be a thing where it's like, no, you can't do this. It's gonna be a tight election. If you put forward a progressive, then what? I mean, they might lose to a Republican. It's too tight. No, this is a safe blue district. This is exactly where you have a hard, contested primary fight. And then the Democrats gonna have a relatively easy time winning regardless.
Unless Henry Cuellar leaves and runs as a Republican in the general. And it'll be interesting to see if that happens.
Oh, I would welcome that.
If there is a possibility
I'm not
of that.
whether you'd welcome it. It would just be, that would be an interest. I wonder if this is going to give rise to that happening in some cases.
Well, I would say primary any Democrat where he might run as a Republican if he loses.
That's easy, yeah,
Boom.
that's good.
That's right. And if you vote with Trump 7 out of 10 times, you might be a Republican.
You might not be a Democrat.
Right.
And the Cuellar thing is an interesting Justice Democrat pick too, because it will be, because the demographics in that district are pretty consistent. And for a lot of political scientists who think whatever you guys think, that Ocasio-Cortez, a lot of what helped her were demographics and not message in New York or the combination therein. But a lot of people think that they've understated the effect of demographic change in that district. It'll be interesting to see the Justice Democrats succeed in a place where that is not a part of it, because it isn't. It's a lot more reflective of who's in office already, which is kind of cool, which Crowley didn't have the advantage of.
Yeah, and so last two things here. Imagine if a progressive gave money to a Republican in a tight race and helped him put it over the. Imagine if Bernie Sanders had given money to a Republican to defeat a Democrat in a close race, and the Republican was really conservative.
Right.
Right? People are like, that's it, he's disqualified. Disqualified. How he betrayed Democrats. He betrayed them.
Well, they think Beto O'Rourke betrayed Gina Ortiz-Jones in Texas because he's such good friends with Will Hurd, who is essentially a Democrat, I mean, on a lot of things, and wouldn't campaign against Will Hurd at a time when he was quite popular and would have gotten a lot of people out for Gina Ortiz-Jones in a close race.
And the last fact is Hillary Clinton won that district by 20 points. Okay, there is no reason to have a district that blue with a person who agrees with Donald Trump 7 out of 10 times and votes against almost all of our priorities. So Henry Cuellar, it was nice knowing you, but not really. So here comes that primary, but don't worry, you won't be alone. You'll have many other colleagues who will be primaried along with you, so you guys can all cry together. For the rest of you, justicedemocrats.com, and in this particular case, justicedemocrats.com/Cuellar Fund. We'll have the link down below. Let's go get them. Okay, we are out of time, unfortunately, but we got a great hour coming up for you guys. Don't go anywhere. Thank you, Michael Schur. You can also catch him on I-24. Somebody complained the other day that we didn't disclose that you work for I-24. Fine. Here's another plug.
Disclose.
That's right.
Independent news network based in the Middle East and New York, and the United States.
They complain when you work for Al Jazeera. They now complain when you work for I-24. There's no winning. Right. Anyway,
that was state-owned. This is independent.
Yes. Okay, John Iadarola, host of the Damage Report. Members, you all get to watch that live, and it's video, audio, anything you want. Non-members, you're going to get a podcast of it. So tyt.com/join to become a member. Thank you guys. We'll be right back. Thanks for listening to the full episode of The Young Turks. Support our work, listen ad-free, access members-only bonus content, and more by subscribing to Apple Podcasts at apple.co/TYT. I'm your host, Cenk Uygur, and I'll see you soon.